Our next guest has a lot of food for thought on how trauma affects the body, and then in turn, how we should listen to what our bodies are telling us. Seattle author Jen Soriano is out with a new book called Nervous, and she writes about how trauma can start even before we're born. Jen joins me now. Such a fascinating topic. The book overall, it's called Nervous. Why?
Because we are all nervous, yes, in the sense that we are beings that have nervous systems that govern the rest of our bodies, yes, and our behavior. But also, let's be honest, we live in really nervous times. And anybody who feels anxiety or worry probably feels that way because it makes sense to feel that way.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting that you say that. My daughter's always had a real startle reflex, even since she was a baby. And
my son too.
Oh, and she's dealing with anxiety right now. So that makes me kind of wonder about some of the things that you talk about in this book. Let's start with transgenerational trauma. What is that concept?
So that concept is, well, it started out as a concept and now it's becoming actually increasingly scientifically proven that traumatic impacts and how our bodies react to threat can be inherited over generations. So for example, you know, my grandmother and grandfather, they lived through World War II. Yeah. And my mother grew up as a child during World War II. Yeah. I never experienced World War II, and I've never directly experienced war. Right. And yet I have a very particular reaction to even watching war scenes in movies. Yes. I hear a car door slam and I think it's a gunshot, even though I don't live in a particularly dangerous neighborhood. Right. And so those can be examples of how there can be reactions to threat that get passed down over generations.
So is it, I want to ask this question, I'm really interested because it's kind of like the chicken or the egg concept where you're thinking, you know, have I made my daughter paranoid? Or you say that bodies can become an archive of epigenetic history, which is how our environment affects how our genes actually work. So what are our bodies telling us then?
Well, our bodies are telling us that survival is really important. Right?
Keep surviving.
Keep surviving. It's pretty much a basic prerequisite to anything else in life. And so transgenerational traumatic lessons that are passed on are actually lessons of survival. And Choctaw scholar Karina Walters, who's done a lot of work on this and who works at University of Washington, says that historical trauma is actually a story of love. Because it's a story about how our ancestors have fought so hard to survive because they've loved, you know, the next generations enough to want to be able to carry on. And then these lessons scientifically are passed on so that we don't have to relearn, you know, if we still happen to be in environments of threat, so we don't have to relearn, you know, what is actually threatening to our survival. But then of course, where it becomes a problem is if we're no longer in those scenarios and we're still in fight or flight mode.
That is a fascinating way to frame it, as a love story. You know, I feel like having gone through the pandemic, we are going to look forward at this and look back at this time, much like the flu epidemic in, you know, the turn of the century. So how is this going to become a public health crisis, this unresolved trauma that we are all dealing with now?
Well, to be honest, many professionals already believe that it is.
I believe it.
And it will only continue to get worse, frankly, because of climate disruption and other types of crises if we don't face it. Yeah. But where the hope lies is that science is showing us that if we do face it, that our nervous systems are constructed to be fluid. Okay. All right, they are not actually rigid. So even though these lessons can become entrenched, if our environments change, then trauma can be transformed.
I think this is, I mean, I love this concept because I think so much of us who are working on ourselves are saying, I'm getting to this point, but why can't I get there? And it's having this aspect of this piece of the puzzle being in the environment makes so much sense, at least to me. Before I let you go, did you write this book off your own experience? And you mentioned something about your family in the past.
I did. It's about my own experience with chronic pain that nobody could explain. And so it's my journey of exploring my own medical diagnoses, but also my family history and being able to trace the pain to the roots of unresolved trauma, and also finding healing through community and culture.
What else do you hope folks take away from this book?
I hope they take away that healing's possible. And that we can heal on an individual scale, but also if we can work together to change our environments to make them more secure for all, then we all win and we heal on a public health scale.
Wow, I could talk to you about this literally for an hour. I can only imagine how therapeutic it was to write this and to do this.
It was.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to read the book Nervous by Jen Soriano, Essays on Heritage and Healing, incredible book. And by the way, just a reminder, Jen is holding an author event tonight, Wednesday, August 23rd at Elliott Bay Book Company on Seattle's Capitol Hill. A very important topic to go listen to tonight.